Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jason and I am your watch guy today. Today I'm reviewing a Pagani design. We've seen plenty of them on the channel. This one, it hits a little differently and you'll see why. Now, Pagani have finally tried their hands at a Doxa Homage and I have in the orange dial. Now this has been sent to me for free by the Pagani Design wristwatch store. You should know that before we get into this review, however it's fully honest and you will see that. If you wanted to buy this watch, I have linked their store in the description. That is an affiliate link and I do get a kickback if you use the link. Now, Pagani go through this cycle of releasing very almost watches. You know, those watches that were so close to being perfect for the price, but just had a little thing missing. And then they cycle back to making really bad watches. So today we're going to find out which of the two this is. I've reviewed plenty of Doxa 300T homages. The Tactical Frog, which came first, the Sea Stern, which was absolutely fantastic, and the Fawn, which was a very nice budget option. So where does the Pagani design sit? Well, let's turn the camera around and let's find out. So this is one of Pagani Design's latest releases. Now in the market in the last year, we've obviously seen a lot of Doxa 300T homages. We've seen the one from Fawn, which I introduced to you a couple of weeks ago. We've seen Sea Stern and we've seen Tactical Frog. Tactical Frog only got it right after about the third or maybe fourth attempt. Sea Stern nailed it first time round. Fawn was a really nice budget option. Now, Pagani Design have released their own. This comes in at £108 on the Pagani Design wristwatch store. That's who sent this to me, by the way, and that's who the link in the description will lead you to. But where do they fall in the Doxa 300T rankings? Well, obviously, price-wise, they are coming in pretty strong around the £100 mark. But first, let's start with the dimensions of this piece. It's 43.2 millimeters in diameter. I have it in a 13.9 millimeters thick, including the slight dome on that sapphire crystal. Lug to lug is a very wearable 45.3 millimeters, and these are 20 millimeter lugs. We have a screw down crown on this piece, and that is attached to the NH38 movement. That is one of the things that Pagani Design have definitely nailed in here. They've used the correct Seiko movement type for this piece. No date window, therefore NH38 movement, spot on. This crown is signed with the Pagani Design logo and it has a nice level of grip. It is quite easy to get hold of and it sits very nicely within that case shape. Now this cushioned case shape is one of the real selling points to this style of dive watch due to its wearability and how comfortable they are on wrist. And you'll have seen these from many different manufacturers, especially those around the 80s dive scene. As we move to the rear, you can see that we don't have a display case back on this piece, but we do have an etching of a sea turtle. Now, it's actually quite nice to see this because Pagani usually do go with a display case back. However, it's nice to see on some of these models that they put together a different aesthetic for us. Usual information around the outer edge, and this is a screw down case back. 316L stainless steel, the entire case in here, and we have a mixture of finishing throughout it. As you can see, we have a really nice radial brushing on the upper side of the casing, which again leaves a really nice aesthetic to the watch, and it's accented well by this really high polish side. As you can see, a little bit of a fingerprint magnet on here, but it does accent the rest of the casing very nicely. We have a 120 click unidirectional bezel here. As you can see, we have the mixture of aesthetics in the colours of the bezel markings. You can see the orange around the outer edge there and the black markings on the inside of this bezel. It's nice to see them differentiate there, but it does leave a really nice effect with it being fully stainless steel. I think that looks very vintage, very retro to me, very retro diver. As mentioned, the crystal in this one is a domed sapphire, really nice level of tabletop dome in this one. And that again does give the vintage effect. This is a sapphire coated crystal and it does have some levels of AR coating on there. One thing that I would like to point out is how nice the bezel on this piece is. It sits very high atop that case and it has that almost tuna tin type of grip to the outer edge of there, while the lower portion of this bezel sits very nice and smooth inside the rest of the casing. It really does give a really nice section-like design to the watch itself. It's also nice to see that the brushing on the bezel here matches the casing. That really goes well with the rest of the casing. Now this watch is rated with 300 meters of water resistance. I do not have the equipment to test that. However, that is what Pagani Design have printed onto this dial here, as well as their listings, and I have found nothing to the contrary of that claim. Now moving past the casing and into the dial, it's a very classic Doxa style dial with really thick black indexes throughout the dial, with a really nice thick black outer edge to the handset. Also super legible dial on here, and that's exactly what you need for a dive watch. That's exactly what we expect for a Doxa Homage, a 300T Homage. We have a really nice measured minute track around the outer edge of the dial, printed in black. Now, one of my favourite things about a Doxa dial is this crosshair type of design. One differentiating feature on here is the Pagani Design logo is sat in the centre of this dial as opposed to the left-hand side. Now, personally, it does look a little bit foreign to me, that. However, I do understand that they're not going to go full out on the design of the dial. They do have their own quirks or their own picks to how they want to lay this dial out, and this is perfectly fine for me. There is an applied logo up to the 12 o'clock, and it doesn't follow with any print, which I know a lot of you will be happy about. Personally, I don't really mind the print in a lot of their designs. This one, it doesn't faze me much. Down to 6 o'clock, we have automatic divers 300 meters, and either side of the 6 o'clock indice here, we have Japan movement. The indices themselves are applied to the dial, and as I've mentioned, they do have nice thick borders to them to make them very legible on wrist. The one thing that a lot of you will be questioning is how does the loom hold up on this watch, and we're hoping it's good. It's got to be good, hasn't it? Let's get the lights out. Let's find out. The dial on this one I think is pretty good. However, the loom doesn't stand up to much. Dial indices aren't bad at all. Not at all. Not fantastic, however, not bad. Now, the handset really does leave a lot to be desired here, and it has fallen quite short. And that is a massive letdown for the rest of the loom. Obviously, the dial being an alright standard is one thing, but you can't do anything with that standard if the handset isn't visible. So, again, another failure in the loom department for Pagani Design. And if I bring in the uncharged fawn here, you can see, I mean, yeah. Not great. Not a great result for Pagani here. And I'm probably going to rate this as a, well, I can't even see the handset anymore, so I'm going to rate this as a 3. In fact, 2. A 2. No, a 3. The dial isn't bad. The handset's completely destroyed it though, so 3 out of 10 here. So moving on from that very disappointing loom shot, we move to the bracelet. It is fully stainless steel once again. There's a small level of taper towards the clasp here. It's a bead of rice style bracelet. We have push pins and removable links. Full polish down the centre, brushing down the sides leaves a really nice accent. The clasp here is a very simple fold over safety and double pushers. Open that up there for you. Here's a milled clasp, 3 levels of micro adjust on this one. The Pagani Design logo in the centre of the clasp there, a nice brushed finish to that. Female solid end links on the bracelet here. This end link here is quite stiff, I will mention. Doesn't actuate as well as the other side does. The bracelet itself is actually quite comfortable. With that cushioned case, you'd expect a very nice fit to wrist. And for my 6 1/4 inch wrists, it does quite well. As I say, it does fit quite nicely to wrist, and that cushioned case with the really short lug to lug helps a lot, as does the bracelet. The bracelet is not bad at all, I'll tell you that much. However, there is a lot to be desired in this piece, And unfortunately, this moan section will be quite an elaborate one. We'll start with the loom shot. It is absolutely unacceptable. Just, yeah. I mean, this is a dive piece. At the end of the day, you're going to rate it with 300 meters. I mean, if we trust that, we should be expecting the rest of the watch to stand up to that dive standard. Doesn't at all with that loom shot, which is completely, as I say, unacceptable. The bezel, you'll notice that I didn't show you the action on it. Wobbles like hell, and I don't know how you meant to set it, because, well, both of them move, and honestly, I don't understand the outer ring at all. I mean, let me bring over the phone here, and you can see what we have. Now, this isn't perfect. However, the outer ring is the actual movement in the bezel. So you can see how you intended to set that. Not a bad action actually on that phone. This piece, I understand that maybe we could use it as an actual dive indication like we do on most watches. Then the outer edge of this bezel, or the outer ring of this bezel, is completely useless. Why have it in the first place? I feel like they've really let us down with that also. It really does just start to become a faux homage piece, you know, like a really bad attempt at what it should have been. And that's a real shame, because that's what a lot of people expect from Pagani, and these type of pieces are where they can really prove people wrong, and they haven't done that. For me, this is exactly what you'd expect to hear about Pagani on a forum. This is exactly the piece that you'd see people complain about, and you know what? Rightfully so. Completely rightfully so. I'm getting off on a tangent here. I do have another couple of points to make. The edges of the casing are rather sharp. Usually I don't notice this type of thing in a Pagani design. A lot of people do say that the finishing on them is quite sharp. This one particularly so. I mean, it's never going to cut you or anything like that, but it'd just be nice to have a nice level of finish on it, if you understand what I mean. The bezel action, not good at all. And finally, one thing that like really got on my nerves, aside from the lack of adjustment on the clasp, I would like to see forward or above pretty much everywhere. We don't have that here. There's no dive extension also. I was going to leave that out. I mean, it's quite kind of irrelevant to it, because the clasp is absolutely shocking. So putting this onto, I've literally just had to push it back in because it's already clipped out. Putting this on wrist, I've just clipped that in. You can listen. You hear that? That's the clip in. Oh, nope, not locked. You have to clip it in, and then push down extra hard and clip it in once again. Then close that up. I mean, just... what am I meant to do with it? What am I meant to do with it? Come on, Pagani. They have an opportunity. I mean, this watch is £110. Look across the Aliexpress market and see what you can pick up for £110, because I'm telling you now, much better than this. I'm going to advise you straight away, go and pick this up instead. Around the same price. And honestly, a much better quality. Leaves a much better taste in my mouth too. They've just let themselves down on this one, which is unfortunate. I mean, if you're going out and out looks, it looks good. It does look good. And they did a lot of things right too. I mean, the 300 meter water resistance, that's a decent step up for them. As well as that, the fact that they actually fitted with an NH38 movement over a 35. And yeah, this could have been so much better. But unfortunately, it's quite the letdown. And I think I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching this one, guys. I really do appreciate it. I'm very sorry that I got really negative towards the end there. I don't like to really come down on a watch, because I like to think that every manufacturer had the right idea at the beginning. They wanted to make a really nice watch. However, this one just really did have way too many downfalls for me. Pretty much every turn there was an issue, and I know Pagani design can do much better, especially for the price range. So I really do think that they need to come back with a version 2 for this, with a lot of fixes, and I hope they do that. Now, if you did want to pick one of these up or any other stores available on the Pagani Design wristwatch store, the link to them is in the description, and that's an affiliate link. I also have my personal online store linked below. You can buy all sorts on there, including watches from really budget brands all the way up to some of our real favourites and Swiss-made pieces as well. Plenty of options for every budget there. Thanks for watching this one, guys. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.